Hey guys, welcome to Daniel Hegarty Movie Reviews, and this is my review on Hellraiser Judgement. So last year they brought out Hellraiser Judgement, which was supposed to be a reboot of the Hellraiser franchise, totally disregarding the previous films, starting fresh with a new Pinhead, some new Cenobites, a real dark and gritty theme. And when I was looking at the images coming forward from it, I was dead excited. I thought this is a real different take on the whole thing. They really have put the effort into the makeup and special effects to make this look pretty horrible, and I was all up for it. Unfortunately, it panned out far worse. It's almost like the first bit was like their main idea, and then it sort of tails off. They're like, oh, right, we've done that bit now. What can we do? I know. Let's get another detective on the case. Oh, how many times have we seen this in a Hellraiser film? They get a detective that looks around and then unearths the ideas and what's happening, and then he gets a bit sort of fanatical about it and then ends up in the whole thing himself. You know, it's just like they don't need that. Just follow the story of the Cenobites, the story of Hellraiser, the idea of Pinhead and what happens to these people. And basically there's a place, this derelict house that people get invited to by letter or whatever, and they go there and it's for their own judgment. They're generally horrible people and have done really sinful things, so you don't mind what you see happen to them, and that's why it's called Judgment. This whole thing is like a judge and jury system. You go there, they have a really fucked up way of judging you, which I'll get into in a minute, and then your sentence is carried out depending on what the jurors think. Now, this, don't get me wrong, this, I've just explained it quite straightforward, but this is proper messed up. The opening scenes, you pretty much see the new Cenobites, and they are horrible. Like they look like suffering, and that is good. That is kind of the idea. They're the sort of the demons of hell. They enjoy the suffering. You know, there's kind of elements from the old ones that are totally make sense. But I think they just pushed the envelope a bit too much with how disturbing they were making it. Instead of it being frightening because of the concept of the afterlife, what happens when you go to hell, if you go to what they call hell, they're taking all the bad people to this place, so they, instead of you dying going to hell, they're taking the people that really are sinners, like the worst of the worst, I'm sure you can imagine, and they are judging them on earth and then executing them on earth. And I presume their souls or their whatever's left goes to hell to continue the suffering. Now, there's nothing wrong with the storyline. I've been reading up on it. Absolutely nothing that I could see wrong with the storyline for a reboot. They're recreating something they were trying to kickstart something with a new look, and we've been waiting for something like that for a long time. Instead of just keeping the same theme and replacing Doug Bradley, we knew that wasn't going to work. No one could take his place, so if you're going to change that, you have to change everything. And they definitely came up with a concept that was usable. But as I said, they made it overly disturbing. It was very uncomfortable to watch, which even the old ones, they had their moments. They were uncomfortable, but it wasn't so pushed in your face. It wasn't like as soon as you get into the film, there you go, there's the horrible bits. Yeah, I mean, there was ridiculously horrible bits in Hellraiser, all Hellraiser films, where the guy sort of feels he has bugs all over him, cuts himself, the chains ripping apart. They are horrific, but there's just something different about that. There's more build up to it rather than just sort of showing you the most horrible thing they could think of, and that's what happens in this film. So within the first 10 minutes you work out what they're there for. And I'm going to give you what happens at the beginning. So this horrible guy has been invited to the derelict house. He doesn't know at this point it's for Judgement. I think they say to him, you know, we know who you are, what you've done, come here and whatever. So he turns up out of curiosity, and he meets first of all a sort of, I don't know what you call them in a court system, but they write up like maybe a solicitor of some sort, and they actually plug him in intravenously to the typewriter, which sucks blood out to the typewriter, and that's what inks the typewriter, right? So they managed to get him to divulge all of his sins on these bits of paper. Then this horrible big fat thing that's talking to him takes the sort of papers, puts them in a bowl, and then he opens a little vial which supposedly has kids' tears in it and pours that on, and then he's with a knife and fork cuts up the papers and eats them. Then he goes to a sort of urinal thing on the wall and starts to regurgitate it. Now this is what I mean. It's so like, who thought of this? It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's just horrible for horrible sake. So he regurgitates these sins that he's wrote down, and then all the vomit goes through a hole in the wall to these little troughs on the other side of the wall, where there are the jury, I presume, which are 3 naked ladies with things over their heads, which then go and eat what he's regurgitated, and then based on what they think from that is how they trial him, whether he's guilty or not, or whether he can be saved or whatever. And would you know it, he is guilty, and his sentence turns out to be where he gets sliced up on a table. So they bring him in strapped to this table, and there's this massive guy comes in with a man on his back with these blades, who jumps off and starts cutting him up, and all the blood then that goes on the table sort of runs through these little channels down into the table and out of the sides and gets shot out at the naked lady's massive boobies, and they're getting covered in blood and loving it. And it's just like, you know, if you were given 10 minutes just to write down the most sickest thing you could think of, you might come up with this. Now, what I was saying before is, like, it seems as though that was their main idea, this judge-jury system, you know, that we've never seen before. And then after that, they get the detective thing again, who's trying to figure out where these people are going. I don't care about that storyline. You just want to see the Cenobites and the Pinhead. And, you know, I think the reason that the second film was so good was because you got to see their world. Anyway, that's another conversation. But basically, it fizzles out. The whole thing just fizzles out. And then there's Archangel Gabriel in this, where she's bringing a message from God to Pinhead. Like, Pinhead's doing God's work, like he's Satan, and we kind of know that isn't the whole overall concept of Hellraiser. You know, that there isn't a heaven and a hell so much, like there is just this after thing, afterlife. So to bring in the God, and the Archangel Gabriel's like a 6-foot beautiful blonde who comes in but actually turns out to be quite nasty and condones what he's doing, but she's bringing a message from God saying he wants you to do this and he wants you to do that, and Pinhead's like, well, I'm not doing that. It turns into trash. Like, if they wanted to make it really disturbing, they could have kept the idea of this judge and jury system, but they've just ruined it by bringing out all of the good and evil bits. It's sitting at 4.4 on IMDb, so, you know, I probably wouldn't even give it a go, but some of the old Hellraisers are in that category, so maybe that's acceptable. But this really had potential, and just from the get-go, when I started watching this film, I was like, that's really disturbing. But even then, I hadn't written it off. I thought, you know, they've gone with something really horrible. And back in the day, the Hellraisers were a horrible film, and, you know, just a lot of places banned them and stuff. So maybe they were just upping the stakes for that. They could have just marketed the film at the real sickos, to be quite honest. They could have made it so that the people this was for was the people that are into the necromantics and the cannibal holocaust, the real, just the stuff that's uncomfortable to watch. They could have just made it for them. Instead, they tried to reboot using the Hellraiser followers. Now, I don't think any of them thought this was a good sequel or a good start to the new, and certainly not because it's gone. There's no talk of a new one. They are talking about doing a Hellraiser TV show, which is kind of why I'm doing this review, because I've seen this a while ago now. But they could have really, if they wanted to make a sick film, they could have made it a sick film and said, this isn't for the faint-eyed, this is for people that love the real twisted stuff. It's not for Hellraiser fans. But that would have shot themselves in the foot. Instead, they've made this, and unfortunately it's garbage. It really is garbage. The acting's terrible in it, especially when Archangel Gabriel turns up. It just doesn't make it. It's like, why would Pinhead doesn't have that many morals? She's asking him to, I think this story, she's asking him to trial someone that isn't actually bad, and he's like, no, I won't do it. And it's like, he wouldn't have cared. He would have done it anyway. I know he let some people go because that's not who he came for, but they don't. It's like whoever made this didn't understand the original concepts. And I don't know, did Clive Barker like it? Did he think it was good? I heard he didn't, but who knows for sure. I haven't done any research on it. I just thought I'd give my view on how I felt, and I felt it was garbage. So watch it. I think if you watch the first 20 minutes, you'll have seen everything you need to see and will understand exactly where I'm coming from. If you watch the rest of it, you'll definitely know what I mean when it comes to the detective bit, and then talking to the heaven and hell influence. It was just, it's almost like something, it looked good maybe on paper, and then they've made it and thought, shit, well, we've made it now, we might as well try and get some money back for it, so good, well done. I look forward to the TV series. Hopefully they can do more with that. Failing that, give me the money. I will happily try and make a Hellraiser. I'll put myself forward for that, and if it turns out crap, I will happily take the embarrassment for that, which is probably what this guy did, so hats off to them. But yeah, better luck next time.